it's Kim here in the kitchen once again, coming from Victoria, Australia with Kim's Homestead. Guess what? No snakes on this video. Yay! Anyway, what I'm bringing you today is a way of preserving a good special that I got hold of today, and that was Hamburger Mince. Now there's a couple of ways, of course, you can always preserve it. One is by parceling it up into meal-sized lots, of course vacuum sealing it for better preservation and putting it in the freezer. Vacuum sealing helps to prevent the freezer burn and helps it to store for much longer than what you would normally be able to, which is good because then you've got less wastage. Also a good way is by putting it in a jar and pressure canning it, and of course then you can just pop it up on your shelf. You're not taking up freezer space, and it's just a way to preserve it for a long-term usage. Now it's been some time since I've been able to get hold of a good special on mince. They don't seem to have them very often now, and normally their specials are like $10.99 for a special on Hamburger Mince. So when it came up to $8.99 for a 5 kilo lot, that means you've got to buy 5 kilos at $8.99 per kilo. I thought, well, that's the best special I've seen for quite some time, and probably the best that I will see for a while. I remember it used to come up for about $4.50, which was fabulous. I used to grab a heap then and can it up, but it's been probably going on 4 years since that's been a cost at the butchers, and as I said, I don't think I'll see those prices again. And at $8.99 it's very rarely comes up for that, so I thought I'd grab 5 kilos. That should be enough for me. I also grabbed another 5 kilos for a friend of mine. Now she doesn't pressure can at all, which is unfortunate, but I have parcelled up her meat into 500 gram meal size lots, which is enough for 4 people, 2 adults, 2 children, and I've parcelled that up for her, and she'll be collecting that later on this afternoon. But I'll show a clip of it for you to see. You can see what it's like. It's actually quite a sizable packet. But anyway, how am I going to preserve this meat? Well, here I have a box of jars. They're just assorted jars, whatever I could get hold of. When I go to the supermarket, I see these ghee jars. I like these pint and half pint, or half pint sizes, whatever you call them. These ones are great for myself. I don't eat that much anymore, and honestly one of these ones is 2 meals for me. So then I've got these are actually ball jars or cups. They put them out as cups, but they're just the same as the jars. The food goes in there nice and easy, and the ball tops fit on them fine. So if it's a jar, I'll use it. Then we have some of these, which are your larger type. I suppose this was a pickle jar of some sort. A friend actually gave it to me, but normally you get jam in these sort of things, and I'll use this one if I must, but honestly I don't like the tops of these ones. They're not very good. I'm pretty sure I've got some other tops I bought new, but I'll have to have a look anyway. But this is a good size for me for when I have guests over, like the grandchildren. They often like to have spaghetti and meat sauce, so that's plenty to feed to my family when they come over for tea. Then we have, these are the spaghetti sauce type jars, and I'll be using those as well because I don't have very many of the small jars. And then of course we've got the ball jars. There's also these fritter del pato. You got to be careful with the tops of these ones. Sometimes the ball lid will fit and other times it won't, so often it's quite good. Normally I'll try a jar out before I even put anything in it, and if the screw band won't go on, I don't bother. That jar is a storage jar then, and I will write on in black texture, like the marker pen, that it's a storage jar, so that I don't mix it up with the other jars. And this one here I think held olives. It needs a bit of cleaning of course, which I will do. And that one, once again, that one is for when I have the kids over for a large meal. A stew, spaghetti, something like that. So, then what I'm going to do, of course, those will all go into my dishwasher and they will be sterilised and heated up, because what you have to do with mince is you have to cook it. Not cook it all the way, but pretty much cook it through before it goes into a jar, because it's such a dense food, the heat cannot penetrate all the way to the centre. So therefore you have to make sure that the heat penetrates and it's getting cooked all the way through. So therefore, with mince, you par cook it, make sure it's cooked at least half to 3/4. I usually cook it 3/4 because I like my mince well cooked. And what we do then is you dry pack it. Dry packing it means you're not adding any sort of liquid or anything like that once the food is in the jar, mainly because even though you've cooked it most of the way through, and there will be a lot of fat that comes off it which you can save for cooking later on, and it's a good fat, not a bad fat, then even though the meat has produced all that and you can drain it all off, it will still produce a lot more. And when it's cooked in the jar, it will actually form a fat cap on the top. So don't think that because it's got this fat cap at the top it's going to be yucky, because it's not. You need a certain amount of fat in your diet, and if you drain it all off, you're not getting the fats that your body needs. So by leaving that bit of fat there, you can scrape it off if you've got a particular recipe that needs extra lean mincemeat when you go to use it, but otherwise leave it on there, and you won't have to add fat to a pan or anything like that when you go to reheat the meat again for later on. So yeah, but this is the 5 kilos of mincemeat. And it's in about 14 bags. There we go. This will probably need to be cooked up in 2 lots, 2 big pans, I think. It's quite a lot. So here it is. That's half of the bag. So what I will do is I will just separate that down or pat it out a little bit into the pan so it fits better. There we go, just like that. And this will go into a, let's see, I've got a fan forced oven. It will go in there at 190 Celsius for about an hour and a half roughly. And what I'll do then is drain off the fat, and I've got one of those meat pummeler things, you know, that has the little wings on it. Anyway, you'll see it when I come back. And I'll just break up the meat so that you're not having sort of one great big chunk. And then I'll start packing it into jars, and we'll go from there. So here we are, 5 kilos of fresh Hamburger mince, all parcelled up into 500 gram lots, ready to go into the freezer, ready for fresh eating meals. So what I've done is, while I've got the food saver out, I had a whole heap of capsicums that came off of my bushes, the last of the capsicums. So I've just taken the cores off and the guts out and chopped them all up in my little chop wizard there, and I'm ready to parcel them up into the little bags and vacuum seal it, ready for the freezer. Well, here we are, all bagged up and put into the food saver. Starting to seal. And there we have it. 1 bag of capsicums ready to go in the freezer, and that will be very nice for when I'm making my spaghetti sauce this year. Another job finished and done with. Next, time to can up the other 5 kilos of mincemeat. Right, in here we have an assortment of jars. We have a ghee. We have these fruit thing ones, ball jars. We have old sauce jars, jam jars, even the ball one with the handle, and even small, I think that's a mayonnaise jar. So that's a spaghetti sauce jar. So they're the ones that we're going to be using. Into the oven they go. Now, I have 2 cast iron baking trays. I don't like the other ones, the Teflon, it's poisonous. So there we go. They will stay there until they're at least half to 3/4 cooked. Well, we're back again. It's actually the next day. The meat has been cooked, and because I had visitors last night, I just turned it off, let it cool down, popped it in the fridge overnight, and now I'm ready to get back into it again. And that's what you can do when you're canning. If you happen to get visitors or you've got to go out, unless you're in the critical stages of canning, just turn it off, throw a cloth over it till it cools down, pop it in the fridge and start it up again when you can. It'll usually last in the fridge for a day or 2, and then before you can get back to canning it, that's fine. But anyway, what I've done is most of it, because I doubt very much whether you want to sit through the whole darn thing, and it makes my space cleaner. So what I've got left is just, my hands are clean, is a nice good chunk of meat, and that's what I've cooked. And this is what I meant about the meat pummeler. It's really good. Good for meat and for husbands. Now, you just crush it all up like that. Make it into nice, small, reasonable chunks. You don't want to stick some dirty, great big thing into the jar. There we go, all pummeled up. So here we have a jar. This is just a commercial spaghetti type jar. This is a top I cut out of a milk bottle. Normally the larger funnels and that made for putting into ball jars won't fit these jars. And there we go. I forgot to get a lid. Now, these lids I got just from my local brewery shop. They tend to have these, which is really great. I'm not sure whether all brewery shops do have these, but ours does. I'm sure if you ask, they might be able to get them in for you. There we go. Ready for the canner. Now at this stage, if you wish, you can add half a teaspoon of beef stock and fill it up about halfway full with water. At that way you would have to get out all the air pockets. Make sure it's free from air around where you've put in the liquid, but it will still make enough liquid of its own not to have to do that. But if you want a little bit more flavour, or you're wanting it for extra stock, it will make a good stock basis as well. Now out of that amount, I also got, this is the runoff, or the water that came out of the cooked meat. This is what you would call meat drippings without the fat. So this is good for soups and stews, pretty much anything that you want to flavour. It's pretty well raw beef stock. So you're going to bet I'm going to be canning that. Then what I've also got out of it is a whole heap of beef tallow, which is really good if you're into making soap or just to cook with, especially savoury dishes, anything like that. Absolutely fabulous. So yes, I'm going to keep that as well. And also is what I call schmaltz. Now this I'm going to freeze. This is a real hit of flavour, beef flavour. So this will go into a probably a stew, or maybe a lamb casserole or beef casserole later on in the winter time, and it will really give it a very, very nice flavour. You can also add it to a rich gravy sauce. If you're having like a nice roast or something, add this to your gravy and oh, it'll be really nice. So I've got two nice things of schmaltz and a nice one of basically raw stock with some schmaltz in it. The tallow, which I'll be cooking with, and I think I've got, let's see, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, an extra 13 jars of beef mince, which will go very nicely in my pantry. So let's load up the canner. As you can see, the first round is full. Now it's time to add the second round. I have a second mat to place on top of the jars. And now I just add the jars. Now this is all going into a cold canner because all these jars are cold. And now the lid goes on. And we shall put it all the way up. And turn the light on. There we go. Now, I will leave that like that until it has come up to temperature. At that point, I will let it vent for 10 minutes. Then I will turn it down to medium. Once it's vented for 10 minutes, I will put the little weights on the vent, and then it will be in the canner for 75 minutes. At that point, I will just turn the canner off and walk away. I will wait till it comes down so that I can touch the canner quite comfortably. Then I will remove the lid and let it sit there for a further 15 minutes. Then I can remove the jars. Okay, we'll come back when it's nearly time. And so we have it. 14 lovely jars of Hamburger Mince ready for my pantry. Assorted sizes. Well, actually 13 jars and 1 jar of beautiful I suppose you could call it drippings, but it will still make it a delightful meal. or 2. It's quite a big jar, but as you see, it's still bubbling slightly in there, so they're still very hot. They need to be cooled down overnight on this towel, and tomorrow I will wash the jars, label the tops, and find room in the pantry. Well, as you can see, it's another day once again, but out of it I have 13 jars of mincemeat put away into meal-sized lots. Actually, a lot of these I will actually get 2 to 3 meals out of. Now, all bar one has sealed, so this one will actually go in the fridge. Now, how you can tell a good seal is you can pick up the jars by the seal, and if they're, you can actually give them a little tug too. And if they're not going to come out, well, then their seal is good. Also, these ones, the little, they have like what they call a button top, and if that is down or suppressed, you've usually got a pretty good seal. Now this one here, as you see, it's not sealed, and of course this lid comes off, so therefore I know I don't have a seal with that one. These commercial jars, they also have what's called a button top, and you can usually tell by pressing on those whether the seals are any good. Now this one here, even though I packed the jar quite well, obviously it has dropped in processing, but that's fine. It's a nice little amount there that will actually do me for 2 meals. This one here, that will make a really nice soup later on in the cold weather. So, out of a really good special, $8.99 a kilo for the Hamburger Mince, I've got quite a few meals worth to last me over winter time, stored in the pantry, and I won't have to take up any more room in my freezers. Now these will last a good 12 months, if 2 years or more in your pantry. The only thing with that is they may lose a small amount of nutrition the longer that you leave them in your pantry. But if you're rotating through your stock at a reasonable rate, then that won't be a problem, because obviously you'll be using the older stock and rotating it through. So that's as easy as it is in putting good healthy food in your pantry so that you can feed yourself or your family and even your friends if you like, without it costing an absolute fortune. Now obviously you're going to pay really good prices for meat because it's very expensive at the moment, so if you can get hold of a good deal, then you can put away a fair amount of it in your pantry and you not have to worry about it going bad or having it worry about freezer burn, or just taking up valuable space in your freezer. Anyway, so that's it for now. I hope you liked this video, and if you like my videos, please think about giving me a thumbs up. That would be really good. And if you like the content and would like to see more of it, then think about subscribing. Alright guys, I will catch you again soon with another video. Bye for now.